Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. Also goes on my YouTube channel, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to discuss spiritualism, mediumship, healing, faith, family, and more. And this is year 9 of Wednesdays with Willa, so I'm delighted to say there's a treasure trove of past episodes, archive videos. The best place to view that would be on the YouTube channel. Facebook doesn't keep videos longer than 30 days. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Willa White, you'll be able to type in your favorite topic or your favorite guest that I've had on the show and be able to watch videos and learn right along with them. Many people tell me they binge watch the show and that they really enjoy the conversations and the education. I want to also refer people to my website, willowhite.com, if you're interested in any of my online classes. I do teach mediumship development along with other spiritual topics, and there's always something rotating through so you can learn and grow and be. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for today, Penny Hayward, who is a medium from the United Kingdom. She's an Arthur Findlay College tutor and course organizer, as well as being certified with the Spiritualists National Union. She's been on the show before. We've been able to talk about trance mediumship and other topics relating to mediumship. And I'm so thrilled to welcome back onto the show today my friend Penny Hayward. Hello, Penny.
Hello, Willa. It's so nice to be back with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We always have a great discussion. And for those of you who are hearing the difference in accent, for Penny, she's originally from Australia, but years ago she moved to the United Kingdom and has definitely been on the path of mediumship ever since. And she's very popular and sought after as a teacher. And we're delighted to have her on the show today to talk about alchemy and the medium because
Mhm.
Penny loves alchemy, and we're going to start with the definition of what is alchemy.
Wow, let's get right in there.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we could think of alchemy in terms of scientific terms of transforming different metals into things, and in terms of being a medium and the alchemist process, I think it's really important that we, as the medium, go through a form of alchemy. And I think we do because our life experiences are usually transformative and our spiritual experiences are quite transformative. So there is this process that happens, and I think it should be ongoing as well. And and when we start to work with the spirit world and we start to work with other people in the spirit world, then that's quite possibly a form of alchemy that we could be talking about because there's, like a healing process through grief, and there's the healing through the love and the connection, and it can bring so much peace to other people. So, and of course, we know mediumship is a broad topic. There's all kinds of mediumship, and naturally, healing is a form of mediumship, and evidence should be a form of mediumship and healing. So, yeah, I think if I wanted to define alchemy in terms of alchemy and the medium, it's a ongoing transformative process. How does that sound to start off with?
I think that's a great way of the starting this off and explaining about alchemy. I My understanding of alchemy has always been about taking whatever is considered the raw material and then moving it through the breakdown of things, the way we have to incorporate is as mediums, we have to do some of the shadow work. We have to do some of the spiritual unfoldment. We can't do mediumship development effectively unless we pair that with spiritual unfoldment. There's a naturalness
Mm,
to that. And then what comes is that there's a space of purification, of illumination, the enlightenment that is part of that process. And then what happens is we have this full-on integration when we're really
Mm.
in the core of our mediumship experience. I guess I feel that embodiment of the spirit so fully that my energy alters. I'm able to vibrate to the frequency of the energetic signature of that spirit communicator. And so
Mhm.
there is this arc that happens energetically within us, a chemical change, I would say,
Absolutely. Yeah.
an energetic change.
Hmm.
There's such a shift on a mental, emotional level that is very much part of this process. So, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
about
Yeah, well, I think I totally agree with you. As a medium, when we go to work in that mediumistic awareness, we're going from our normal, whatever that is, human awake awareness, and we are going through a transformative alchemic process, aren't we? So, as you say, there's like a chemical reaction that happens within our humanness to alter our frequency, our brain waves, and to be able to be receptive to the frequency of the spirit world, which usually is what we would term a higher vibration. But there's so much that's going on, it's hard to really sort of say, well, it's just this one thing. So, of course, science is looking into mediums and their brain waves, and oh wow, there's this change that's happening in the medium's brain waves, and it's happening in certain neurocorrelates, and wow, and that is true. But what about the endocrine system, which is that chemical change?
that? Mhm.
And what about our blood pressure and our heart rate and all these sorts of things? Because we go through different physical types of changes to be altering our awareness into that of the unseen world, to be woo-woo on us. So So, of course, we are going through an alchemic process, aren't we, to be the medium, to go from, you know, Willa, the wonderful normal human being, into, let's say, Willa the medium, or Penny, the normal human being, into Penny the medium. And then we're able to bring that connection between the worlds. So we're able to perceive information through our non-physical senses. So perhaps some of that brainwave frequency and some of that chemical change and what have you that's going on within and around us as the physical and non-physical aspects of who we are, that then allows there to be a bandwidth in the air, if you like, for the spirit world to come in and to harmonize and to start to communicate through our non-physical sensitivities. And of course, we've got to take that non-physical stuff, what we feel, what we know, what we might be hearing and seeing and feeling and knowing and smelling and tasting and all those sorts of things in our non-physical awareness. And we've got to piece that together really quickly. Like when you think about it, it happens at such an intense speed that we're transforming that into words that should be understood by somebody. And that's a pretty amazing thing, isn't it, when you think about it? Because I don't even, sometimes I try to break down how am I getting that and understanding that, but I think it happens so fast. It's just this like, I just know. Don't you think? It just sort of seems to come out. And I think we're almost putting our normal human brain processing to one side. We're almost putting that in neutral
Mhm.
And so if you think about driving a car, you know, you get in, you start the ignition and all those things, and you go through the gears if you've got a manual car. Like I do. The US is full of automatics nowadays. But if you think about a manual car, and it's like you can put the car in neutral and coast along. And I think that's what we're doing. We're sort of getting ourselves into a state where we put our normal human awareness into that coasting. We're just in a neutral kind of way of being. And then there's this incredible process that's going on that that's happening so fast you can't really break it down into finite pieces, and information flows. And that's why it's so hard to explain to people how you work or how you're perceiving information, or that you can't just hear them saying, my name is Bob and I lived at this address and this is this and this. You know, we don't hear like with our physical ears. And I guess that's why science finds it really difficult to sort of pinpoint it as well, but it's catching up. I think there is sort of some scientific experiments that are catching up on that. So when you think about us as people and then that mediumistic aspect to us, there has to be this change, there has to be this transformation that happens to be able to be in touch with the unseen world, people's loved ones, or that healing connection as well. But I think it's important to think of it as also we're creating like a field of consciousness, if you like. We're creating a field of energy and frequency, which then incorporates not just the spirit world, but the loved one that we're connecting with. And in a way, there's a I like to think of it as we're part of an alchemic process there as well, because we're bringing healing to the two worlds. You know, those that are in the spirit world, things left unsaid, and apologies or love or whatever it is that needs to be communicated. And then on this side of the world, there's that, I don't know, you must have seen it too, Willa, where you've got a recipient and there's something that comes through from the spirit world, you know, through us as the medium, and you can just about visibly or really literally visibly see the recipient just you know, like there's a change that happens in them where you can see like a weight lifted, the weight of grief or the weight of guilt of some kind, or the relief and peace to know that that loved one is safe and well and on the other side, and not suffering and all these sorts of things, and it's really incredible, I think.
It is. It's very incredible and special. And I think it starts with having the right intention and the right practice initially in mediumship development. I
Hmm.
encourage my mediumship students to remember that each week as we're doing development circles, that we're calibrating the energy so that you can do the work. You're calibrating with spirit and getting your body and energy conditioned to do the work. We can't just start at 500 pound lift. We have to
Mm.
start in on a very kind of gentle sequential pacing with that, and then build the trust with spirit, because part of the alchemy is the deep abiding trust that we have to link fully with spirit. The more we enter into that experience, the more we're lifting into that uh, higher vibration, that raised vibration. So a lot of the alchemy seems to be in that way. I'm just,
Yeah.
in terms of what I've observed over the years, there is a chemical change that starts to occur with people who are sensitive. As they're
Mm.
wanting to do higher vibrational work, their body may go through an actual chemical shift. It may change what you're able to eat for a while, what you're able to take on board energetically in your own life, to the extent that you may have to really develop strong coping strategies as an empath to be able to harmoniously live your life along with develop your mediumship abilities. So I think there's some important nuances for those who are at the beginning of their mediumship development journey that you could go in knowing that you're going to have to figure out your new normal, calibrate your energy, and that it will shift depending on what phase of your mediumship development that you're in. That also shifts as to what clair is dominant at that time too. So as you're working through clairs, maybe you're strongly clairsentient. What do you need to do to be in that purified state, to take on board some of the understandings, those deeper rooted issues that people were dealing with when they were here. And if you've done the work yourself, it's easier for you to go ahead and be that pure channel. So I think that's a very necessary component of the alchemy
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
media. And then, as you were saying so beautifully, there's this place that we kind of get into, and some people would describe that as that liminal state of mind because you're between two worlds. So there's that inner world, outer world, conscious, unconscious, super conscious. You're in that little space and
Mm.
you're trying to translate somehow with verbal language what you're experiencing through imagery and through the soul senses, and to somehow transmit that without distortion. Again, the purity
Yeah.
concept is
Yeah.
part of that. So, yeah, alchemy is very relevant to our process. And I was going to ask you what you thought about this. So I was learning a lot about the physical body. I'm always interested by the science of things. And you probably are aware of something called fascia, right? How
Yeah.
our
Hmm.
fascia, and how you'll get that prickly thing or the tingles or things
Hmm.
like that. Well, so much of what we do when we're connecting with a spirit individual, if they not just come into our aura, but if we feel it on a physical skin level
Hmm.
or even deeper in that overlapping, that spirit, that soul overlayment processing, that there's something going on chemically,
Mm.
electrically, and
Hmm.
it's the electrons are working, the water, the fluid in us is all so perfectly made and created to do the work
Mm.
of spirit contact, to do the work of intuition. What are your thoughts about
Hmm. Yeah, I think, well, that's exactly right. What we were talking about at the beginning with the chemical process, the endocrine system, and our brain waves, and altering our awareness is another thing. But there is also that electromagnetic change as well, and another, I'm sure, energetic changes that are going on because mental energy is an energy, and physical is an energy, and so on. And we've got that, I often talk about to students, we've got to sort of attune the different energies of us into a form of alignment that is right for that connection to the spirit world, and what is beyond our physical sensitivity. And of course, it's gonna work better or not as well every time. And that's something we have to get good with as well, because, when you're talking about energy, there are going to be things that harmonize really well. Like, think about music. When you've got like an orchestra that's in perfect harmony, it's beautiful and it's wonderful. So when the energies of you, the medium, are just right, and the energies of the spirit world are just right, and the energies of the recipient, and the room and the space you're in, when everything's in that harmony, it's amazing and wonderful. And you wish it was like that every single time, but there are going to be times when part of the orchestra is out of tune or out of time, mistimed or something like that. And so it's working, it just doesn't harmonize quite as well. And I think that's a really important and nice way to think
It's
about
an
it.
excellent point you're making because many clients and many beginning students, they don't understand that. They expect some sort
Mm,
of perfection right off the bat. But the thing to keep in mind is that mediumship readings are experimental sessions, every single one
mm,
of them. You don't know what's going to happen. It's spontaneously, organically occurring in that moment. And there are so many factors, as you laid out so beautifully, that have to be in alignment for this
mm.
to work effectively and for the dynamics to be there for impressive evidential mediumship.
Yeah, and I think it's right what you say about, the water within us. And I don't know about you, but I drink 10 times as much water before, during, and after mediumship. And water's always been connected to spiritual things, like the oracles used to go to water lakes in caves and sleep the night to get the answers of the unseen world. And water is a conductor of energy, just like copper is a conductor of energy. And there's got to be something to that as well. So that's absolutely right, that we should be paying attention to what is right for our bodies. And there are theories. There's even some evidence that veganism improves psychic abilities and things like that. Now, I like cheese too much to give that up, I'm afraid. So it's not going to happen. But I am pescatarian because my body tells me it doesn't want to digest meat. And if other people diets include that, that's what's right for them. I'm not judging anyone. But I think, I don't know about you, but some of the old spiritualist books did talk about you must be vegan or you must be vegetarian, or you can't eat red meat 3 days before you do trance. And the room temperature must be exactly 21 degrees Celsius. And
I've read some
um
of those things, but it's interesting. I've noticed that protein works best for me. And
right.
everything, like, so everybody's different. And I think we have to make room for that. I've noticed that
Mm,
it's really about having a good balance of electrolytes and having the right kind of minerals. I feel as mediums, we go through minerals more readily than,
mm,
let's say, the standard human person that's not having
yeah.
to do this kind of heavy duty energetic work. And so, some of the components of what a person might choose to eat, you have to
Mm,
remember that you're going to be probably using those things up. It
yeah.
is a common known understanding now in science that if you use up your sodium, it taps into your magnesium and your potassium and your store. If you don't have the right storage of those three things, you can be really
Hmm.
off. So, I mean, we have to have this balancing act within us because you don't
Mm.
want to be fading or go into some sort of faint. We have to be strong. The more we're at 100%, the more we can do powerful work, the more we can help more people. And so we have
Mm.
to uh, eat the things that are going to support our bodies, and do the experiment for yourself of how your body
Yeah.
seems to run best with
Yeah.
this. What kind of effectiveness, what kind of level of energy can you bring to the rest of your life too, not just
Mm.
your mediumship, because it's important to have that grounding. And
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
glad you brought those points up because it's important for people to understand that the work we do as mediums is very, very different. It is very body harsh at times,
Yeah.
emotionally difficult, and
Yeah.
you have to be able to contend with those so that you can powerfully move through a mediumship practice and a mediumship life with that. So I think this alchemy is really important to talk about today because I don't think most people are bringing that forward and making it
Yeah.
centering in on that to the way they in the way they should.
Yeah, and look, I think people sometimes talk about, if you're going to be a medium, you've got to work on yourself, you've got to heal yourself. There's no point being a wounded healer. That's very true. And you mentioned shadow work and things earlier. I mean, really, everybody in the world should do shadow work, but doesn't. But I think that as a medium, we've got to look at all aspects of ourself and look at what is right for us because there is no off the shelf box that you can take and it makes you a medium and it makes you the best medium. And it just seems like there's forgive me, but it just seems like people sort of do workshops and think, right, I want to give up my career in finance and be a medium. And it's like, really? You know, um and there's this whole marketing aspect. Now, don't get me wrong, marketing goes a long way, but then you have to deliver. And I think that, there are people that are really good at marketing, but maybe aren't as good in other areas. And then there are people that are no good at marketing and a fantastic medium. And so it's not about marketing, by the way, everybody, but it's more about we have to understand ourselves and we have to put in that time and effort and we have to be the researcher of our own experience. So, what is right for us? A lot of people talk about, oh, I can't possibly eat before I demonstrate. And I was one of them. But part of that was because of my nerves and,
Right, you were too nervous.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, because I was too nervous. And there is that's part of that chemical change that's happening. And, we often talk about, well, if you're not nervous before you work, then, it's not looking good. It's not going to be a good dem. And that's because it's not nerves as in fight or flight, and that adrenaline for that purpose. The adrenaline that we're getting is that endocrine shift, and the butterflies is part of that sign from the spirit world. Are you ready? And so if we're mentally thinking, oh my God, I'm too nervous. Why do I put myself through it? And I was one of them that did that, then we're seeing it as a negative and we're creating a negative frequency around us and we're going into that panic rather than sort of like, oh, great, good, they're gathering. We're going to have a good time.
Yes.
Come on, spirit world, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so then once we start to understand those things and how it works for us, and of course it's really powerful to begin with, um, but then once we start to harmonize and once we start to understand it's not as powerful, so then we panic thinking it's not as powerful. Oh my God. And but what's happening is there's that fine tuning, those adjustments that are happening, that harmonizing is starting to happen within us. And so then we've got to pay attention to the subtlety as opposed to that like
That gripping feeling. Well, it's
yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up about the butterflies because for myself and for others, I've said when I feel the butterfly sensation, it's actually spirit beginning to stir. Especially if you're
Yeah,
clairsentient, you're going to feel that in the abdomen. Your vagus nerve is starting to tone up for the work you're about
yeah,
to do. And as you said, there's the adrenaline, there's the cortisol. There are other things happening on the endocrine level, the glandular level that are starting to open you up for the experience. What really was interesting to me is I read a Chinese medicine book long ago. It explained about gestation and what happens
mhm,
with each month of gestation, the different energies that and energetic channels that open in the mother that are also opening in the baby as the flesh and the soul are knitting.
mhm,
I actually feel to some extent on a different level. That is what's happening with us in our mediumship. We're
Mm,
having to quickly adapt. Eventually, we get into that step into the power right away. It's like flip a switch and we're ready. But it
yeah,
takes practice. It takes that building of the trust, and it takes working through those butterflies and recognizing the positive signs that you're having a good union with a spirit communicator so that you can effectively give that out because you become the
yeah,
vessel. That's part of the alchemy. Your body, your energy, they're all signaling to you.
mm,
Let's go. It's go time. We've done
yeah,
the air the the air flight check beforehand, and here we go. We're ready to launch. And
yeah,
I noticed when after I've done public mediumship, there's a revving down that my system. As soon as I've
yeah.
delivered messages, I kind of want to just get out of there because I can feel all this in me,
Mm,
and I can feel I have to kind of shake off. I can feel almost sparks on me, right?
mm,
And in the
yeah,
aftermath, I can feel sparks because I've just gotten kind of supercharged up by the experience
mm,
of mediumship, and that is what is normal for me in my
yeah,
process. And
yeah.
so there are stages that we go through as we're gearing up and gearing down that you might start to recognize the energetic, chemical, and other shifts that happen with you as a medium.
Yeah. Oh, totally, totally. And I'm so glad it doesn't last a week now. But about an hour before, if I get those little butterflies, I think, great, wonderful. So I now have a light meal before I demonstrate and things like that because, yes, there's a certain amount of energy that goes towards digesting, whatever you've eaten. So I don't have a heavy meal, but I have something, so I'm not going to be lightheaded and what
Yeah, you
have
need
you.
to have the right fuel so that you can run.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right, there is this sort of ramping up and off we go, and then there's this coming back down. And I don't know about you, but when I'm doing a demonstration or a service, there's the build up before you start, and then, when you're starting the service, there's that kind of pre-flight checks, going on, and then you're off. And but then sort of towards the end of the service, I can tell the last contact or two, my energy's starting to come down already.
Yes.
You can feel it coming down. And then, you're sort of like what people don't understand is you're kind of like all your energy is still like woo like that
Mhm.
around you, and people might be coming up to say things, which is lovely, and I
Yeah.
don't want people not to, but sometimes I almost feel myself needing physical space, because there's just so much energy within and around you afterwards, and then you've sort of got this like coming back to earth, like oh,
Right.
those sort of a feeling.
Yeah, and you have to then re kind of do there's a rebuffering process that
Yeah, you've got
happens
to.
is how I would
Yeah,
describe that. And I wanted to your point you were making earlier about that nervousness and that it does have a reason, but then also I feel that a lot of that is so that we stay ethical, we stay true to what we're doing. And I actually do tell my students that unless you're every 18 months kind of questioning what you're doing in your process, then you're not really evaluating and up leveling yourself in that
mm,
sense. Like we always, I think we have to, I don't want to call it nervousness. It's like a just that like, am I doing my best? Let me try to do my best and let me try to be in that
yeah,
space. You know, I'm trying like a
yeah. And
I,
things
I don't want to get
change.
into an arrogance, right? We don't want to get into
No.
arrogance. We want to keep that trust, and we need to
Mm,
it's a little bit of the I a reassessment of what is my best. Does that make sense to you?
yeah, yeah, and it's having like a growing edge, isn't it? It's sort
Yes.
of like, you know, I think as soon as I noticed a long time ago when I was going through my own development, there would be these like periods of climbing uphill and then plateauing,
Mhm.
and then almost like a complacency, and then like there'd be a new sort of going up and plateau. And I think there's that sort of that you have to have that time to absorb and incorporate what you've been learning, what you've been taking on, put it into practice, and then that sort of plateau and complacency, sure enough there'll come something and it shakes you up, and that's that back to the growing edge. You've got to like do more, to implement more, understand more. And I think that's where, by the sounds of what you've been saying about your process, and I know in my own process, I was always questioning, like, well, what is going on inside me? What's going on around me? What does this mean? And little glimpses from the spirit world. And um, you know, uh, I talk to my students about, if you've got nerves, go first, because it means everything's in alignment for you to do a good job. If you're sat there with your nerves making the other person go first, by the time you go, you've wound yourself right up, and you're not in the power and energy of in a good way of those nerves and things. And I think that was something that I learned quite powerfully, because I used to be almost crippled by my nerves.
Mm.
And I can remember the spirit world telling me one time, as I was gripping the banister of the platform just before I went on, like going, they told me to breathe, and to breathe down into my solar plexus, and to imagine that when I breathed out, the butterflies were flying out. And I tried that, and you know what? It was like as if it took that nervousness and made it something positive and brought it out around me. And I learned something new. I learned something different about the energy, and that by sort of strangling it and making it a negative was actually me getting in the way of the process of what the spirit world was ready to do. And I think that's all part of that transformative alchemic process of observing yourself. How are you helping, and how are you hindering the process?
Mhm.
How are you um, getting in the way? And sort of further down the line, I noticed that my logical mind was getting in the way of information, and I started to recognize the feeling of that. And I started to so it's this observation.
Yeah.
Part of the alchemy, part of the transformation is observation and honesty. You've got to be really honest with yourself about, oh, actually, I got in the way there, and not tear yourself up, like, oh, I should have, would have done better, and we all do it. But, is to go, okay, I see what happened there. Let me do better next time. Let me make sure I keep myself out the way, because it's not about me. When
Right.
we're the medium, it's not about us, and that's that human self being put on neutral over to the side. You just be on neutral and coast along while all this is going on. And then you got to take care of yourself afterwards. There is that replenishment that you were touching on. There is that you know replacement of energy, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be emotional, whether it be, part of your own soul power. We've got to replenish, though, what has happened chemically, electromagnetically, physically, emotionally. We've got to nurture, you know. we've got to nurture, not sort of like assassinate ourselves, which, is a fine balance.
Absolutely. And I love that expansiveness with the butterfly, that symbology. It makes
Mm,
complete sense because when our energy is in a contracted form, it can feel like we have plastic wrap all around us and we can't breathe. It's almost a suffocating experience. But when you are allow your energy to expand, when I teach my students what it's like to be really in that expansive spirit light, that home base, and that when you take a breath, it's you're allowing that energy to go outward. That expansiveness assists you in your mediumship process because
mm,
you are then saying, I am an open, clear channel. You're welcome to interact with me. And when a person is in a joyful, centered place, they have a much more effective spirit communication than if they're in a fearful, nervous, angry state. The chaotic
mm,
state doesn't make for effective mediumship. And we see that all the time with clients, right, who are in different
mm,
stages of grief and how that can affect their ability to feel contact with their own spirit loved ones. So it is for
mm,
the medium as well. And so
mm,
I think it's beautiful to envision those butterflies all going out, and then you can feel your energy, all those links of your energy expanding so that you can connect in with that unified field.
that's
So yeah,
right. Yeah.
I think you
Yeah,
that was
because
well stated. Hmm.
yeah, thank you. And it just helps people to be aware of that non-physical part of themselves that is expanding and welcoming the spirit world and their connection, and it's a joyful sort of image as well, I think, which makes you feel joyful about what you're about to do. And
And to your point
I
about the refining of the perception, like instead of assassinating ourselves about, oh, it's about refining our perceptions.
mm,
And to some extent, having grace, yet discipline about that process
sure.
because sometimes people give themselves too much grace, right? But we have to refine that perception, our perception of ourselves, our perception of the spirit, and be willing to
Mm,
go deeper into specific mediumship states because
mm,
there's more than one mediumship state, and then it's very much tied to this alchemy process. And we do have the the ethical responsibility as vessels of spirit of wanting to offer loving service to do the
mm.
work within ourselves on a daily basis to prepare, to clear, to be. And it can be a bit much for certain people. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
As much as everyone
Yeah.
has intuition to some degree, not everybody is supposed to be a professional medium per se. It has to come to you. You have to want it. You have to put the effort toward it and know that it's a daily responsibility.
Absolutely. And as much as we work on that, we're never going to be perfect for everybody. And that's
That's a
that's
good point.
something that we have to really get good with. And some people are harder to please than others, and there can be miscommunications. Even, I like to sort of talk about I'm from Australia originally, and Australia, England, and America all speak English, but sometimes there are things lost in
Yeah, they're not
translation.
speaking the same
And
lingo.
and so I mean there is the language of the spirit world, and there are other cultural languages and things like this, and so we can inadvertently um convey something that doesn't quite come across, or the way we express it and the way the person hears it might not be what was meant, what was said and meant, and what was heard and felt. And so we're not going to be perfect all the time. And I think this work does attract people who are super sensitive emotionally.
Mm.
And um, you know, I am an introvert, and in some situations I am still shy. But I wouldn't say boo to a goose when I was a child, and I was extremely, scared and all these sorts of things. And it seems to me that a lot of people that have this wonderful ability, and it is abilities, it's skills, it's not gifts as far as I'm concerned. The people that have these beautiful natural born abilities and skills tend to also be highly sensitive human beings, and insecure and shy and all that. So imagine the hurdles you've got to go over, and that sort of alchemic process that you've got to go through before you even start to develop your mediumship, and recognize that you have these abilities within you. And I mean, I was defiant. It took me 5 years of development mediumship to even admit to myself that I was a medium. So so there's a humbling in that, but there's also an insecurity in that I had to work through and overcome. And so I think that the path of the medium is a difficult one on multiple levels, because the path of the medium is that you obviously are also a human being, which is hard enough just to be a human being. But then you've got, these added sensitivities that are more, our emotional sensitivity is much higher than the average person's. We've got our insecurities and things that come along with that. A lot of mediums have been through difficulties, real difficulties and struggles in their formative years and earlier in their lifetime. That is something that we've got to overcome, that wounded healer. We've got to overcome that and do our self-healing. And then we've got to find, oh, guess what? You've got these abilities, and decide whether you're going to learn about it or not, and how much effort you're going to put into it, and all the things that we've talked about, and all the things we haven't talked about in this session. And it is a roller coaster ride. We're going to have moments of improving. We're going to have moments of difficulty. We're going to have moments of expansion and incredible experiences. But it's as though those incredible experiences are stepping stones to get through all the difficulties that are surrounding those. And then there's life to deal with. You know, we've got to deal with life as well.
You gotta chop
Um,
wood, carry water. That's what life is full of having the everyday life things to deal with, and
yeah.
relationships with others, and learning how to do those things. Really important points that you were making here about the sensitivity that people are going through, even before mediumship development, for them to work through the right kind of coping strategies is
Yeah.
really essential to get those in place so that they understand themselves a little bit more and have some patience with their
Mm,
process. And
mm,
I do highly suggest for people who are empaths to start to make buffers of time in your schedule, if possible, where you're not around other people, that you're not in their around their thought forms, that you can just be, maybe it's you go take a walk in nature. It's not a bad thing to be slightly antisocial occasionally, just to regroup and get to know yourself in that deep level.
yeah.
Get a baseline of what's you, because then when you're
Yeah.
interacting with other people, be they in spirit or alive, then you'll have a sense of, oh, that's not me, that's them. I can
Yeah.
accept that that is their energy that they're bringing to this conversation, to this
Hmm.
equation. I don't have to take it on as mine. It's just a notification. It's there for me
Hmm.
to have greater compassion for them as I'm interacting with them in this particular moment. And that will
Yeah.
help you to stabilize your chemistry, your emotional chemistry, your energetic chemistry, and your body chemistry. Those things need
Hmm.
to be stabilized, and you need to practice those things and look at how you are allowing yourself to go off kilter sometimes by having an aggressive emotional response to what's going on. You may have to
Mm.
tell certain people around you that it's not them. You just need a little step back at points. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that. So, yeah,
absolutely. It's having healthy boundaries, for your own well-being.
yes,
And
yes.
and and to under absolutely I think I'm still understanding myself because there's layers, isn't there, to all of us, and there's like we talk about layers to healing. We think we've healed something within us, and then there's a maturing, and then there's something happens and it scratches at the next layer of what we thought we'd healed. And I think that's also part of the alchemy. That's also part of that ongoing transformation. I, I, I realize I'm still trying to understand who I am, um, and that started from when I was 3 years old, as far back as I can remember. Who am I and what am I doing here? And we were talking before we were recording, and I was saying to you, I've started this master's degree, and it's in consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology. So there is this continuation of discovery that an inquiry that I'm on, which is getting me, the transpersonal side is getting me to look at myself. Who am I? The shadows, the archetypes that are within oneself. And I'm really enjoying it because it's allowing me to develop another aspect of myself that isn't medium Penny Hayward, and it's an expansion of knowledge and understanding for me. I'm doing it for me first. But it's also helping me to understand, things that I'm interested, like the looking into the science and psychical research of mediums and mediumship, and the collaborations that are being developed there, and the projects that are being done. And this is all really important because it's not necessarily about me, the individual, all the time, but there has to be me, the individual, that also develops.
Yes.
Because a part of me wants to share this growth and this knowledge and this sort of to go through the hard work so I can sort of say, hey, there's this as well, and look at what's being looked at, and we didn't know that it was being looked at, or whatever it might be, or look at this new technology and how it might shape the future, or bring more another dimension to our own understanding of what is going on within and around us. So, part of this, the alchemy of the medium is to be on an ongoing journey.
True. True.
And in whatever way that is right for you, and to always ask, is that right for me? There's lots of teachers out there. And lots of teachers that teach wonderful things. Lots of teachers teach things I don't really know about, so I can't really comment on. And there were some things that I think, okay, well, with the way it's been explained to me, I wouldn't say I'd agree with that, but that's okay. And but it's about each individual asking themselves, how does that sit with me? Does that make sense to me and my understanding at this point on my journey? Because I know on my own journey, there were things that I were just whoop over my head. So I just sort of I felt like I was putting it on a metaphysical shelf, metaphoric shelf that just was like, okay, let me park that.
Hmm.
And and then along the journey, and things start to absorb and sink in, it comes about again, and you're like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, how does that feel to me? How do I know? What do, and there are things that I'm still on the fence about. There are things I'm still skeptical about. I think it's healthy to have a little bit of skepticism within you about things, because that's the growing edge.
Yes.
That's the inquiry, that's the contemplation, that's part of the exploration and the journey that you should be on. And
Totally.
no, we're not all going to take the same path, because we're not meant to. And I think if we're turning to teachers and we're saying, well, so and so said this, or this teacher said this, what do you think? Well, what do you think? It's almost like we should be saying back to them, well, what do you think? Because I can give you my opinion, but it doesn't mean that my opinion is right for you right now, or that our sort of theories are in alignment. I think it's good to have conversations and to share thoughts and ideas. And part of this master's degree that I'm on, you know, I mean, my mind has been expanded about consciousness. There was me thinking I had a grasp of it, being a medium, but
Sure.
but there are like 255 theories of consciousness out there. And, there are all these people theorizing what consciousness is, and people trying to explore. And then there's this sort of, you know, um,
The battleground of,
post, yeah,
yeah,
the opposing forces of materialist scientists against post-materialist
the
scientists
debate
who are,
rages on.
yeah, and but I think if we sort of go, okay, well, none of us know, so let's maybe see where there's a common thread, or let's look at different aspects of different theories and see whether there's a connection. Because what I'm thinking is, well, what if there was a connection in every one of those theories that made a whole?
Yes.
What if,
We try to
you
find a
know?
unifying feature of things when we're in this path of discovery. And I think that it's a very valid point that we have to be expanding, we have to be in discovery mode, that whenever we stagnate and rest too fully into something, we're no longer in that growth experience. And
Mm,
yes, I do feel there's a wisdom place that people can get to because they become then the maintainers of a certain level or standard. I think there's
mm.
something to be said for that. But it is a spiritual progression, being eternal and infinite, there's always something more to learn and grow and
Oh
be.
yeah.
And I know we have to wrap up things up in a few minutes. Are there any last things that you'd like to share with folks today about alchemy and medium? And we've covered so many things, but are there any last
Mm.
either thoughts or tips that you'd like to share with people as they're refining this understanding for themselves?
Yeah, I think really almost as a recap, it would be to be the researcher of your own experience, and to be the researcher of who are you, and what is it about you that has is the driver of this journey, or that is taking you on this journey of discovery. And is it about being a medium, or is it about just uncovering these skills within you that can be woven into your life but not necessarily be your life? And I think this is something that is important on the journey. I mean, I was a little bit stubborn. I was like, I'm not doing any of that, and then did everything I said I wasn't going to do. And so listen to the signs that are coming from the spirit world as to whether this is the journey for you. And maybe, if you think about like a river, and water on a river, the water's always moving and it's seeking where it needs to be, and it finds its natural route, and it goes over rocks and it goes around rocks and it goes under branches, and it maybe splashes, and sometimes it flows fast and sometimes it trickles, and all these things. And that's what the mediumistic journey is, and that's what life's journey is, and that's the interconnectedness, and be on a journey of discovery, because you don't know where that river's going to lead, whether it leads into another stream, into another river, into the ocean, and back out again. Wherever it's meant to take you is where it's meant to take you, and not to try to, you know, direct how it should be. Let it flow as it's meant to be.
I think that's a great summary of things. And I love the imagery of the water. I think that's going to really connect with our viewers today, our listeners. And you just brought such a wonderful wealth of information to our conversation today about alchemy and the medium. So thank you so much, Penny, for being on the show today and being who you are. And let's see, how can people find you? It's Penny Hayward for your website,
Dot
Penny Hayward.
co,
Mhm.
yeah, pennyhayward.co.uk.
Perfect. That way they can find you. And I think it's wonderful that, as mediums, we have the opportunity to go through this process, to
Mm,
look at it in the right light so that we
mm,
can be in healthy mode as we make these shifts, as we grow, as we move like and flow like water through the different phases of our journey in our life. And it's been just such a delicious conversation. Thank you so much, Penny. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Please let us know you like this show. And you can like and share and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more wonderful shows, wonderful guests like Penny. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.